Yeah, so I guess thanks for joining the webinar. Uh, I'm thrilled to be here and be able to share some knowledge with you, and I hope you get something out of it. So my name's Jason. I'm a director at Horizon Digital, and we're probably Perth's largest custom software development company. We run about 40 active projects at any one time, and they're mostly just like mobile apps, APIs, integrations, web systems, a range of different stuff. So today I'm going to talk to you about the reality of AI and how you can get the most impact from it. Um, you know, leveraging data is essential to stay competitive, and using that data and some AI to basically save you time and enhance your business and add value, as well as help you compete with your customers. So yeah, just what I'm going to go through with you is a little bit of the reality of AI, where data and AI can make a significant impact, some real world examples so you can see how we've done it. Some of those are bigger, some smaller, and when I say bigger, it's kind of like they started small, but they've grown to something that's, and you'll see when I go through that. And then we'll talk about some first steps to formulate an action plan within your own businesses about how you might look at doing that and how you would identify where to start. And then there's a bit of Q&A where you can ask me some questions if you like. Cool. All right. The first thing we're going to talk about is the reality of AI. So I don't know if a lot of people might think that. So there's a robot in the screen here, and that's because often people think it's mysterious, it's too complicated, it's a machine. The reality is it's ultimately just a tool, like another tool that you can use in your arsenal of tools that you have available to you to help streamline and automate your business. And you can use that in a large way, or you can use that in a small way to really turn the dial. And people have talked a lot about, AI is going to revolutionize your business. And I think in some cases that's very true, but probably in most cases of where we are today, it's not really going to completely turn your business upside down, but it absolutely can be used to make your business more profitable and efficient. And so the idea, really, the message I want to get across to you is start with small steps, improving your process, using a bit of AI and data, and then that will help you gain some competitive edge. And that's sort of, I guess, the purpose of it. So here, this particular picture is from Multiplicity, which was a movie in 1996, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but basically, he clones himself as a robot, and each time he does it, it has its own personality. And so I think it's important to note at this time, so people might have heard of, ChatGTP. If you haven't, I'd be surprised. I think ChatGTP 5 comes out probably in a couple of weeks or a week now. It's been delayed, but the interesting thing about that is it's going multimodal, which means instead of just typing in and being able to write, ask it questions, you'll be able to send it photos, you'll be able to use speech. And that could be, you'll start to see applications around holding your phone up and being able to run ChatGTP in the background, and you'll be able to look at like a water bottle or something, and it would be able to give you real-time insights into what you're looking at, which is quite interesting. But yeah, ultimately, the biggest thing I was going to say, apart from, if you know a little bit about ChatGTP, it was mostly trained on the internet from a few years ago. And so it doesn't really have access to real-time information. And so it's hard in your own businesses to think about how that would be applicable. And so it's not, general use cases people normally use it for is, writing CVs, writing blog posts, or asking questions, maybe putting tenders and proposals together. It's not too bad, that sort of stuff. But where the real power in it now is around, so like this image portrays, is like basically duplicating you or a person in your business. And that's not in the generic sense, that's in the sense of the actual person. And so to give you an example, if you loaded up all of your emails into it, it would understand and learn how you respond to people, how you make decisions, how you talk. And then I could go and ask it after it did that, hey, here's a problem or a question, what's the answer? And it would respond as if it was you. And so the power of that is, if you think about that at a more robust scale, it's kind of like duplicating yourself or duplicating your knowledge in the form of a system. And so if you have a business, you're an SME, and you are making decisions, daily about stuff, whether that's junior staff coming to you and saying, "Oh, what do I do about this client?" And you're having to use your lens of your expertise, your knowledge, your time in business to say to that person, "Well, we should do X, Y, Z," and that's based on your experience. You can basically replicate that in a system to make those decisions for you as if you were making them without you having to actually make the decisions. And that can form part of a process. And so it's really automating the way we think and make decisions. And that's where the real power comes in. That's where some of the sort of opportunities might lie for your businesses. So that sounds quite scary, but it doesn't actually have to be overwhelming. It's about finding out where it can make impact and reduce your resource expenditure. And it also helps enhance your customer experience. And if you think about that, if you have a consistent approach to how you talk to your customers, how you answer questions, how you strategically apply decision-making to it, and that becomes more consistent, you end up getting a better customer experience, one that you, as an SME or someone working in the business, is proud of and wants. I went to a seminar not long ago where they did an activity where they had a piece of paper and they asked everyone to close their eyes and fold it left to right 3 or 4 times and then tear the corner off. And then they said, open your eyes and hold the piece of paper up. And every piece of paper in the room looked different. And the theory of that was they were saying, well, it's that ingenuity, that innovation that happened in the room of having 50 different versions of this piece of paper is why AI will never replace humans. And I think as a business owner and an SME, I think to myself, that's not true, because I don't want 50 different versions of a process. I don't want 50 different interactions with customers. I want consistent, repeatable process that I know has margin and makes money. And so I want some continuity in that process. And so I would much rather have a robot do it consistently than I would 20 people doing it differently, sometimes screwing it up, sometimes saying the wrong things, whatever the process may be. But I do believe that there's still always going to be a place for humans, but their role is more strategic in the sense of what avenues do we need to automate? What do we need to focus on? What bits can we make automated so I can spend more time talking to my customers, building relationships, thinking about new products and services, and maybe working on my team and in the business rather than administrative, repeatable activities that often chews up a lot of our time. Anyway, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a process that you can go through to figure out how to pinpoint areas of your business where, I guess, data and then later on AI can make an impact. And there's 3 real high-level components to that. So the first one is you got to understand your business goals and challenges. And I think, if you have a business in an SME, you probably already have that component of it. And then the next bit's really, when you have that, is assessing your current data assets. And so what I mean by that is have a look at your business and say, and I always say this thing, if you're running your business off spreadsheets right now, or I'm sorry to pick on you, but with pieces of paper all over your desk, then you're not quite ready to be doing stuff with AI. There's a bit before that, and that's really around like, how do I get that data that's on those paper? And maybe it comes from a system, and that's probably good. But how do I get access to that data and have it in a spot and in a way that's collated that it can be used by AI or can be used to make insights or can be used as part of the process? And so you want to review in your business and say, do you actually have any data that you have access to? If you have some and you need more, how are you? What's your plan to get that data into that ecosystem? And if you have it all in there already, how does it look? Does it hang together? Does it make sense? Is it clean? Or do you have rubbish in there that you need to clean up? So that's really the first step. And then you then go ahead and you identify use cases. So if you have the data, then you think about your business and you go, what use case do I have that I can replace? And I'll go into that a little bit now. So this is sort of like and I can send this around after, or happy to talk to anyone about it specifically. But yeah, understanding the business goals and challenges. So as we talked about, is thinking about in your own businesses, are you looking to increase revenue, improve customer satisfaction, reduce costs, or just actually sometimes it might be reduce errors, because errors cost money too. And then if that's like a primary or a secondary objectives for you, that's good. So identifying the pain points in that. So, gathering insights to understand the challenges and inefficiencies in that process. And then, you might interview people or talk to people about what the specific problem is. And I know this in my own business, we do an invoicing process, and I found out by sitting, and we're not that large, like we have about 70 staff, and, there's multiple people involved in invoicing. And I think there's probably 3 or 4 people directly that have a big role to play in that. Just sitting down with them, and I know that we've seen some invoices go out that have incorrect information, and sitting down with them and going, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? You find out that 2 of the people are doing the same thing. That's the first thing, is like, what's going on there? Then you find out there's a lot of manual handling and inputting in that process. And that's a perfect example of something you might go, well, I have a lot of errors going out and I have a lot of manual entry. So these 2 things are problematic, and that's a pain point and something that you could resolve. And so if you have the data, or getting the data in the system, you can automate that process, so then humans don't have to make those decisions or enter that information in. So you assess the data. So what does the data look like? What's the quality like? Is it accessible? So, you might have third-party systems like Xero, etc. Do you have access to that data? And when I mean not just looking at it on the screen, are you able to pull that data out and put it somewhere so that you can have other processes reading that data and using that to make insightful information decisions? A lot of times it might be as simple as starting off with having your own data storage space, whether that's a database of some sort, and then getting all of your third-party systems to send all their data into this one place. So then you've got it all in one spot. And then once you have that, you can do something useful with it. So, then making high impact use cases. So when you're going through this process and identifying where you might be able to make the change, you have to review that with your goals and challenges to work out, so if it was an invoicing process, what's that actually costing me now, but either in time or also in mistakes? And then what would the cost be of actually changing this? And depending on the complexity, that varies, right? And so you would do that comparison to say, well, okay, I can save a lot here, so it's definitely worth it, versus it's marginal, so it probably isn't worth investing in right now. But you go through your business in that methodical approach and find out one that is actually going to make a pretty big impact, and start with that one first. And cool. So I'm going to give you some examples here. So this first one, this is actually our own business, and so it's a good way for me to explain it, because what's the point of talking about this stuff if we don't eat our own dog food, right? So we do discovery with clients. We sit down with them, and when they want some help, and we figure out what the problem is, and then we get that problem, and we go away and we sit down with a group of engineers, and we would have said, how would we solve this? What would it cost? What technology would we need to implement? When could we start it? And then we would put that together in like a proposal or quote, and we would send that to the potential client. We'd review it. We'd go back and sit down with them again and say, how does it going? Do you like anything? Do you need to change anything? And there's a bit of a process that happens with that. And then ultimately the project kicks off after that. And so it might be similar to a lot of your businesses where we can't really charge for that work. So it's part of the sales process, but it's very resource intensive, like winning a client, getting them in and talking to them about what we're going to do for them and getting them to, sign on with you is a process, and it takes time. So the problem for us was, how do I make that automated as much as possible so that I can just get the people internally focusing on the work that's actually billable, that I can actually charge for? And so we built a system internally where the discovery session still happens, because it's really important that we have that human-to-human interaction. We understand them, and there's someone actually breaking that down. But now we enter it into a portal, and then that portal actually goes off to our internal AI engine and works out the scoping, works out who's going to work on it, because it has access to our internal data structures, which have our staff, what they're working on, how much they get paid, what their skill sets are, when they're free. And so the system works out automatically what's required to build it, how many people do we need, when are they free, when can we start, and puts it all together in a proposal. And it takes, seconds to get that far. And then a few days once we sent it and talked about it to really get that done, where it used to take 2 weeks. So we've saved a week and a half, and we'd have 4 people sort of working through that. So if you think about the value to my business, it's around, I've now got 4 people's time who have worked for 2 weeks, which I can't recover any of that cost on. I'm investing in that. I've now turned that down to 2 to 3 days, and then I can go on to billables after that. And so turning the dial on that, and that's something, and that took a while to get there, because you imagine in our type of business, especially if you've got resourcing, scoping, planning, the costings, like to put all that data together and put something over the top was a bit of a process, but it didn't start like that. We started very small with just one little chunk of it. Anyway, that's an example. This one here, so this is a sales team. So they had, it's for a sort of like a technology vendor, and they sell like computer equipment, like computers, printers, etc. And so they have a sales team. It was made up of about 9 people. So they had multiple researchers, they had salespeople, and they had lawyers, or a lawyer actually. And so the way it would work is these humans would start their day, and they would go and they would read annual reports, check LinkedIn, find people's websites. And what they're looking for is information or clues on companies who in this financial year or the next financial year have additional spend that they want to spend on IT infrastructure. They would then the researchers would put that together into the skeleton of the proposal. It would go to the sales guy, and he would go through they would go through and say, okay, well, this size company, we could give them 50 computers at this price, 2 printers with services, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes to this price, goes over to the lawyer, and then the lawyer says, all right, I've got to add in these sentences, this quote is only valid based on our assumptions, and we would need a discovery session and whatever else, which covers the costs. And then the salesperson would get it back and send it to the prospective client and follow up through that. Now, in about a month, we replicated them as people, as robots, I guess you call it. So 1 researcher, 1 salesperson, 1 lawyer. Now they work 24/7. They do the exact same job. And so instead of like maybe 5 proposals a week, now does like 30. Even it's actually unlimited. It depends how long you run it for. But yeah, so then the operational cost of that team was about 1.2 million a year, and to run that thing, consistently is about $500 a month. And then so $500 a month running 24/7, you got no more to pay apart from that month that it took in the development team to set it up. And so it's an example of how you can use that to reduce so again, like it's an example of where you can't charge for your time to win sales. So they basically cut that off, they've dropped the cost off, and now they're becoming more profitable. This one's a client of ours, hire me. So ultimately, like I'm running out of time, so I'll just go a bit quicker on these. But basically, they have a recruitment division and they have an IT division, and they find people for jobs as a recruiter. And so they get, potentially anywhere from 50 to 300 jobs per advertisement they put out. And then they've got a person reading through all of that, trying to figure out who to interview. And then, people do get it lazy, I guess. So if you usually need about 6 CVs to go to the client to say, I've got 6 good candidates, you want to interview any. So if you had 300, by the time you've gone through the first 100, you probably found 6, the rest go in the bin. So they didn't want to do that. They wanted to find the best candidates that match, but they also wanted to make this much quicker. So it was less about screening and matching them. So what we built was a tool where it would go through and actually read all the CVs and find the perfect match against the job description, and then we'll shortlist them in order. And then to test it, we ran it against the real team versus the robot, and it was pretty much like 99% the same. Difference was it used to take 15 to 30 minutes to review a CV manually, and this would review the entire stack of 1,000 CVs in 11 seconds. So again, like they're saving time, because that time they only get paid when they fill a position. So cutting that time down means they can get the actual information they need faster. And yeah, this final one is a kitchen thing. So really quickly, it's basically they run ghost kitchen operations. And if those don't know what that is, ultimately it's fake restaurants or restaurants that have a front on Uber Eats but don't actually have a physical presence. And they have a commercial kitchen, usually kebab shop of sort that they've closed the front of. They're running the kitchen in the background. Anyway, they change their restaurant online depending on the needs of the environment. So weekend might be a pub because there's more footy on. During the week, it's a Thai restaurant. Tuesdays is Chinese restaurant. So this particular client, they started growing. So they had about 10 kitchens all up. And the problem was it was how the orders came through. So we built an aggregator that basically went through and got all the orders from Uber Eats, would work out which kitchen's running which cuisines. We would send them to that kitchen, and then scaling it one further to have a machine sitting on the bench top. So one's like a chicken sardo machine, one's like a Thai green curry machine, and the order would actually hit the machine, has a bowl underneath, has a cartridge of chicken, has the sauce, and it's dropping it into the bowl. It's spinning. And instead of a chef, you've got like a line cook just pouring it into a container, gets the sticky note, puts it on the top, puts it to the Uber driver, gets delivered to your house. And so in general, per kitchen, when it first started running, they had about 3 staff doing the orders and 3 staff to get the food starting to cook, right? And that would take 15 to 30 minutes to get that set up, where now they've got it down to 1 to 3 minutes before that water starts cooking, and there's almost no manual intervention. Later on, the next phase of this development, we're doing something around using more AI around the learning of what's happening in the market. So for example, if you've got 2 restaurants running virtual restaurants, they're both Thai restaurants, different names, that potentially have the same, say, Thai green curry, but one is $20 because it's got 100 grams of chicken in it. That's not selling too well. So you can spin up your secondary restaurant because you're like, let's try a different price point. This is all automatic. I'm going to put 50 grams of chicken in, and you put a lower price point in. And if those orders start picking up, you spin the top restaurant down, and it's automatically going to the machine on the counter and reducing the amount of chicken going into the dish. And so then, you're sort of playing the market almost, but on a food scale. Anyway, so I guess the takeaway from all of this is start now and take small steps. This is like what I would say to formulate your action plan after this. So identify an opportunity. So ask yourself, what are the most time-consuming tasks in your business? Where do you see the most waste or inefficiency? And what processes could benefit from automation or better data analysis? So identify them and then go to the next step, which is analyzing them. So setting goals, what specific outcomes do you want to achieve? And so like an example of that might be, what's we talked about before, what's prone to errors, what has financial information that maybe is causing issues in your business, quoting, estimating, anything that's free. And then from that, the goal might be remove all manual interference in the invoicing process. And then finally, ask yourself, do you have the right skills internally to achieve this? Do you need to partner with somebody? Do you need to get someone in to help you with it? Do you have an IT department you can talk to about it? And then finally, outline the steps you need to take. So what are the actual steps you need to go through to make this happen? And an example would be, get your IT people on board, map out the process, write the specifications of the process of how that's going to go, and then action that automation, that build, and then implementation with some change management.